Good evening, everyone. It is an honor to be here with you to present the American Constitution Society's Progressive Champion Award to the ACLU Immigrant Rights Project. As the daughter of undocumented immigrants from Mexico, I am keenly aware of the way immigration policy shapes and defines the lives of millions of people in the United States. I was born and raised in Passaic, New Jersey, which is home to a large community of immigrants from all over the world, all seeking a better life for their families, and in some cases, simply survival. The way immigration law and policy affects my family and my community defined the work that I would do early on. And eventually, that led me to law school. Yet, as my plans for law school began, the 2016 election wrapped up, and the new administration began to orchestrate an attack on immigrants across the country that was unbelievably cruel and unconstitutional. The Immigrant Rights Project lawyers were at the forefront of combating these policies from the beginning. One only has to start to list this administration's parade of horribles to see the challenges these lawyers have been confronting on our behalf. The challenge to the Muslim travel ban, that was them. The litigation to stop the separation of families, yes, that was them too. And the lawsuit to block the administration's requirement that asylees return to Mexico and wait there for their asylum determinations, that was them too. The American Constitution Society's Progressive Champion Award is presented in recognition of extraordinary efforts to ensure that law is a force to improve the lives of all people, protect our Constitution, and cultivate the next generation of legal leaders. The ACLU's Immigrant Rights Project has diligently rushed into court at every turn to preserve the rights of parents to be with their children, of asylees fleeing dangers, and all of us to travel without discriminatory reference to our religion or ethnicity. But this work is not new. For over 25 years, they have worked on issues of detention, discrimination, workers' rights, police and ICE abuse in the immigrant community, because in their own words, when the government has the power to deny legal rights to deny legal rights and due process to one vulnerable group, everyone's rights are at risk. And now, in an increasingly hostile environment for immigrants, they have been at the forefront of the fight for equal protection, due process, and the rule of law for the most vulnerable among us. They are, without question, the very definition of progressive champions. Please join me in congratulating Omar, Jadwat, Director, and Judy Rabinovitz and Lee Gelernt, Deputy Directors of the ACLU's Immigrant Rights Project.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lee Gelernt. Omar is actually going to give our remarks, but I just wanted to quickly say not only are we honored to receive this award, but I wanted to sort of thank ACS for everything they did this past summer on the family separation crisis. They were indispensable in bringing lots of different groups in only the way they can bring groups together to help on family separation. And it was indispensable. And I know there's a lot of people out here and a lot of law firms out here that have also worked on the family separation crisis, and just wanted to thank them all for it. This is an incredible honor, and I will turn it over to Omar, who has some remarks for us. Thank you.
Thank you all, and I wanted to say thank you especially to Stephanie for that very nice introduction. She didn't talk much about herself, but I have to say it's so exciting to have young lawyers coming on the scene who came up in the immigrant youth movement and who have been fighting already for the rights of of dreamers, of TPS holders, of people who, by all rights, deserve the place in this community that they continue to be denied after all these years. And on behalf of the whole team at the Immigrants Rights Project, so both Judy and Lee, who are here, and the 15 of us who couldn't make it tonight, I wanted to say thank you to ACS. This award is a great honor, and of course we're thankful for that, but we're also thankful, as Lee mentioned, for all the work that ACS has done to advance our work and to build this important and powerful community. I also want to say thank you to all of the Immigrants Rights Project's partners at the National ACLU and our state affiliates, but also at dozens and dozens of organizations all across this country and law firms, big and small, national, international, local, who we work with every day, and without whom none of this work would be possible. So this award, that award, really does belong to all of us together. So our project's been around for more than 30 years, and we've always had plenty of work to do, whether it's Democrats or Republicans in office. There's nothing new and, frankly, nothing partisan about attacking immigrants. But there is something different about what we're seeing today. If this administration is a stress test for our nation's values, for the rule of law in this country, then that stress test is being felt and being borne most heavily by immigrants and their communities. The intensity and the cruelty and the audacity of this administration's attack is far beyond anything we've seen before. And I have to be honest, the results of this stress test are mixed. If you take a look at our own work over the past few years, I'm going to start with the bad news. Thousands of American families are today separated from their loved ones by the president's Muslim ban, which the Supreme Court refused to stop. Over 8,000 asylum seekers so far have been sent to Mexico without a hearing on their claims, forced in many cases to remain there without a means of support, in physical danger, and without any practical way to prepare for their cases. And more are being added to this total every day. But it's true that if I had only bad news to report, I probably wouldn't be up here. So the good news is there are many places where our legal system is held, where the government's cruel and illegal attacks have been halted. The administration's family separation policy is no more. It's over, and thousands of children have been reunited with their parents. A decree that would have zeroed out asylum claims involving domestic or gang violence is permanently enjoined. The government has been forced to stop throwing immigrant kids in jail based on flimsy and untested allegations of gang affiliation. And asylum seekers can still apply for asylum anywhere in the United States as the law provides, not only at ports of entry as the administration wishes. I could go on with this list, but I want to look at this work from a different perspective. I want to tell you about one of our brave clients, Ansley Damus. Mr. Damus is an asylum seeker. He was an ethics and math teacher in Haiti. He spoke out against corruption in his local government. And because he did, he was attacked and threatened with death by an armed gang that supported a corrupt official. Ansley fled Haiti to save his life. But when he got to the United States and sought asylum, the government locked him up under a mandatory detention statute and sent him to a jail in Ohio. Over the next 2 years, Ansley won his asylum case twice before an immigration judge, but each time the government appealed. And making matters worse, ICE refused to let him out of detention on parole. The ICE office in charge of his custody had simply stopped following the government's own policy on parole, and it was letting almost nobody out of detention. So Mr. Damus was confined in a windowless room with no access to even a prison yard for recreation. He spent more than 2 years in that jail without seeing daylight. I think about how demoralized I would feel in that situation, how hopeless. But Mr. Damus didn't give up. More than a year into his detention, he became the lead plaintiff in our class action, challenging these blanket parole denials, and he won. There's a little bit of an asterisk, which I'll get to in a second. The court ordered ICE to re-review all of the people who had been denied parole under this blanket policy, and to provide individualized parole reviews. So hundreds of people were released as a result of this ruling. And meanwhile, even though Ansley had never set foot outside a detention center in the United States, a community of support had grown up around him. A local family agreed to sponsor him, visited the jail weekly in order to talk to him over a closed-circuit video link, which was the closest they could get to him. In time, more than a dozen people were helping to support him while he was detained and getting ready to support him if he was released. His parole application included letters of support from a municipal judge, a city councilwoman, ministers from 3 congregations, and a petition signed by more than 500 local residents. One of his supporters in the community said, "Ansley has more friends than ICE does." But when he got his individualized review, ICE still refused to release him. And Mr. Damus didn't give up. He filed an individual case asking the court to specifically order his release. 30 people from Ansley's army, as they call themselves, took a bus from Cleveland up to Ann Arbor to be there for the hearing in district court. And it was only after that, when they were up against the wall, that ICE finally let him go. Ansley's still pursuing his asylum case. He's not out of the woods yet. But he's in a home, not a cage. And he can go outside and he can see the sun. His is just one story. And unfortunately, there are so many more like it. And I'm telling it because it reminds us of the perseverance it takes to really win. And the fact that lawyering is only a small part of what needs to be done to address this moment we're in. And as we do our work as lawyers, I'm hoping that we do it with a drop, just a drop of Mr. Damus's bravery and his persistence, and a drop of his community's deep empathy and their generosity. And I think if we keep showing up the way that Ansley's army showed up for Ansley, the way that people went to the airports to show up for Muslims, the way that people took to the streets to show up for those families torn up at the border, that's what we need to do if we're going to get through this and if we're going to win. So thank you again very much for this very kind award, and I hope everyone enjoys the convention.